It has been announced that Jay Jones has won in Virginia. And this is a man who texted he wanted the children of his rivals to be murdered to affect their views on policy, and that if given the option, he would put 2 bullets in the head of a Republican. Here's a tweet from Andy No. A Trump supporter was shot dead on the streets of Portland, Oregon on October 27th around 5:36 p.m. Derek M. Rice, 39 of Portland, was killed on Northeast 125th Place. Police have released no information about the suspect or suspects who got away. If anyone has information about the case, the PPB is asking that you contact homicide tips at police.portlandoregon.gov. We don't know why this man was killed, but considering what's been going on in Portland, and considering that's not the first time a Trump supporter has been killed in Portland, and that major story we did see was Aaron Danielson, who was shot twice in the chest. A man named Michael Reinl is seen on video walking down the street when you hear someone yell, "We got one right here," or something to that effect, and then puts 2 bullets in the chest of a Trump supporter who was walking down the street. We now have another story of a Trump supporter identified as Derek M. Rice wearing his Trump shirt.
Great shirt,
being
by
shot
the way.
and killed. We don't know why he was shot and killed. It may actually be nothing. Who knows? Maybe it was a drug deal gone wrong. I don't know. I don't want to impugn the honor of this man. We don't know for sure. Just that they found him shot and dying, transported him to a hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. Andy No, of course, reporting saying we're trying to figure out what's going on. Now, what I will say is this. It is extremely important to clarify we don't know if this was a politically motivated killing or not. What I will say is, exactly as I've predicted some time ago, it starts to sound more and more chaotic. When conflict arises, you will wake up to these stories, and we don't know exactly what they're about because it's fog of war. Could this be a politically motivated killing? Possibly. I would argue that there's 1,000,001 potentialities where it was not politically motivated. For all we know, he owed some guy money or some guy owed him money and he was asking for it. Who knows? What is going to happen is there's a reason why, I'll put it this way, Andy No is sharing this tweet because we want to know whether or not this was a politically motivated murder. Andy No, in any other circumstance, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, likely would not have tweeted about a shooting with no information. As the conflict escalates and people like Jay Jones win their elections, even though we know he wants to murder conservatives, the assumption begins to emerge that when someone with an overt political leaning is killed, it was for political reasons. And with the escalation of terror attacks on ICE officials, the attacks on ICE officials in general, as well as the attacks on conservatives, people are going to start assuming if you don't have information on why a Trump supporter was killed, then we're going to lean towards it was a politically motivated murder. Now, again, I don't know for sure, but I think that it has become front of mind, top of mind for everybody that you could potentially be killed simply for who you want to vote for. As we already see now, it looks like the AG in Virginia is a man who wants to kill you. He wants to kill conservatives. And that's not an exaggeration. He said if he was in a room, he'd put 2 bullets in the head of a GOP representative. And he hopes that Jennifer Gilbert's children would die so that they would change their view on policy to agree with him. So what I will say is I had a conversation over security today, and it's escalating again. Yeah, I probably have 1,000,001 people saying, Tim, you shouldn't talk about this, but I've already said I'm done playing this game because I think you are all aware of what is currently going on. But again, I had a conversation with security, and the response was, we need to increase your security detail because of what we are seeing, especially now with Jay Jones. The problem is the threat against my life, as well as the threat against many other prominent conservatives' lives, is now coming directly from government. I live a couple minutes away from Virginia. I have always talked about how we're very close to Loudoun County. What am I supposed to do now, knowing that the head of law enforcement in Virginia wants to kill conservatives? And I have a particularly prominent show that opposes people like him. I've told you guys this already. I won't be returning to Chicago for the holidays anymore because about 12 years ago, I'm sorry, this is 13 years ago, I and my friends were pulled over by Chicago police and they tried planting drugs in our car to frame us. And it sounds pretty crazy, but NBC covered the story. Surrounded by multiple vehicles at gunpoint, ultimately they tried planting Adderall in our vehicle. Now I have to deal with the AG of Virginia wanting to murder people like me. Charlie Kirk is dead. The alleged assassin and the people surrounding the assassin appear to be motivated by mainstream Democrat ideology. This isn't just my opinion. It's what you are going to hear on mainstream news reports. It's what you are going to hear from your average mainstream pundit on the right. We know for a fact this guy believes this, and they voted for him anyway. So what happens if I drive through Virginia and get pulled over by some leftist commie cop, and look what I found, some drugs. What's going to happen? I do not trust that people like Jay Jones will actually do their job. I believe this guy is a communist revolutionary who will kill if he has to. As I, for the life of me, could never text a person, I want someone's children murdered. I could never do it. I could never say that. I could never wish for someone's kids to be killed like that. It takes a special kind of evil and depravity. So now we're looking at a story of a Trump supporter killed. And as I often say, truth won't matter to partisans. The assumption is going to be, once again, that far leftists killed a conservative, killed a Trump supporter. And this is where the state of the country is currently at.
I mean, there's no debating it anymore. I mean, there was a minute where we thought after Charlie Kirk was murdered, where it was like, okay, there's no way Jay Jones is going to win with these texts coming out. There's no way. You know, people are going to look at this guy and they're going to say, this is beyond the pale. We can't have politicians talking like this. We can't have someone be the highest prosecutor in the land. Well, now we do.
Logan, I do think you were very spot on with the higher up of the ticket not being too strong. Winsome Sears, she's no Glenn Youngkin, a nice woman, but I don't know, a black woman, and you know there is some identitarianism in the Republican Party, especially in Virginia, and then who the Lieutenant Governor John Reed, I believe it was. Yeah. He's a nice man, but a gay man, and you know Mary was on the show with us when he was on, and she said she wouldn't vote for him because he was gay. So I don't know if I'm reading too much into these identity things, but you know. Abigail Spanberger, very well liked. There are a lot of federal employees in Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., and she was a former CIA agent, so she had the backing of a lot of people well, I think in that camp. And I don't know. I mean, it really struck me when Mary said, when I asked Mary if she would vote for Reed, and she said no, because he's gay, and I couldn't support a gay candidate who goes against my values like that. Democrats seem more willing to compromise on parts of their value for their perceived greater good. Am I misreading this?
Well, I think it's the other way around. I think the Republican Party still has this like terrible idea where they're like, if we just throw up a minority or throw up a woman, or in this case both, somehow black voters will just somehow black voters will just vote for him because they're black. It's like this poisonous idea that Trump has completely blown up because he outperformed any Republican candidate ever with black voters, and he didn't really like appeal to them at all as far as a direct appeal. He was just himself. He just had good policy. He resonated to whatever policy they would advocate for. And the Republican Party still has this, like, it's almost like DEI where they're like, oh, well, maybe if we nominate like a black woman, then maybe black voters will like us. Maybe women will like us. And it's like,
it's called
so ridiculous.
It's called DEI conservatism, and they very much believe in this.
We love doing that. We love taking like a black woman, throwing it in the Democrats' face, be like, "Yeah, look, we support her. Go vote for her." Yeah,
and then
we have a gay man. Yeah,
and Democrats
vote for him.
Being extremely racist just go like, "Well, we won't vote for black people then."
And all conservatives do are say like, actually, Democrats are the real racists. It's like I'm getting pretty sick of this. I think a lot of people are sick of this. Yeah. The other issue is too. There has been no real urgency for the Republican Party to be like, we have to win Virginia. This is an important must-win election. There was none of that, okay? Now, some people have been trying to make a point that, like, New Jersey is very critical. That would be huge to flip that sort of a blue state. But, again, they're not saying like, oh, we need our voters here today, now to do this. I don't think, I don't even know, I can't name a policy of, it seems like, again.
Of Winsome Sears?
Winsome Sears, yeah. It seems
don't
like
you know her policy of hold the gun in that picture?
Yeah.
That's her policy.
It seems like she's necessarily, all the stuff, you know, I'm an online person. I do digital stuff. So when I would see her stuff online, it seems like she's running against a Democrat to say like, these Jay Jones texts are terrible versus like, what are you for? You know, how are you going to improve Virginia? What are you running on? What is your policy vision? Do you have a vision for the future of the state? Now, it's not to say Democrats really did a good job of that either, but they're going into it with a huge
They're
advantage
foiling
because of
Trump.
Nova, right? And because of Trump. So
it's fascinating how much the conservatives do fetishize minorities, and I feel like it goes beyond just these political races. I feel like if there's, if you're a commentator and you're a black commentator or a black female, black gay female conservative online, Republicans will love you just for that, just because of your identity. No matter how dim you may be, you could be the dumbest person. It doesn't matter. We will still fetishize you only because the color of your skin. We do love this weird reverse racism, putting minorities on a pedestal. We love our, what is it? Uncle Tom's? We love our Uncle Tom's.
I don't know about that.
We love our
I don't know
tokens.
about that, but we love the idea of getting a gotcha soundbite on a Democrat. And like we, for some reason, think like, oh, a Democrat's not voting for a black woman. What about DEI? What about all this equity? So we love that. But to Logan's point as well, is the Republican Party has just entrenched itself as the opposition party. So they always define themselves in what they're against, and they never define themselves in what they're for. And that's why, like Cernovich was talking about, when Trump's on the ballot, no one's really interested in what they're selling because it's just being like graceful losers. It's being the opposition party, where Trump is the only person in the GOP that is defining what America should be.
He has a vision.
He has a vision. And it's like the Democrats have a vision, as horrible and as dystopian as it is. They have a vision. All the Republicans can offer in a race like Virginia is like, hey, we'll slow them down.
I think
Trump needs to go Lincoln on Virginia.
Based.
Well,
Not the first time the president needs to put down a rebellion in Virginia, and I would be okay with Trump to do it again.
Yeah,
he didn't endorse in this race, I believe, not because he didn't think he could help, but just because he thought it was a lost cause, and he doesn't like having that blip on his record.
Yeah,
on his endorsement record.
Yeah, as you were saying, conservatives love this like weird they do this liberal thing where they love identity politics for everyone except the people who vote for them. We're told that young white men are the only ones that are actually not allowed to have a heritage, which is a very weird, that's sort of the war that you kind of see inside of conservatism right now. It's like, well, we're okay with identity politics for everyone except like normal young Americans, right? That's not going to work. Either you're going to be like against identity politics, whatever. You're going to be against it in all cases. You can't have this like specific, we carve out for these people, but not for these people. That's not going to work.
I think one of the unique things about the president that we also take for granted, it was his ability to unite these disparate factions within the Republican Party.
Charlie was amazing at this.
Charlie was very good at it, but the Hawks, the religious conservatives, the business conservatives, the paleocons, he was really able to gather all these disparate factions behind him. And I suspect that we're actually heading towards a realignment and civil war within the Republican Party. And the next Republican candidate, presidential candidate, will struggle to really coalesce all these disparate factions as effectively as the president is. And I'm really concerned about Republicans snatching defeat from the jaws of victory with how they're running this, because
so
it's really all coming out now. And I suspect the Civil War and these cracks in the factions are only going to dig deeper as we continue. So
yeah, the table's already set for that. I mean, you've seen people over this last week already trying to poison the well for J.D. Vance, who, as it stands right now, would be a shoo-in for the Republican nominee and probably the presidency. And they're already trying to poison the well because there's people, it's a huge contingent, like I said, because the Republican Party has been defined as being the opposition party to a varying degree, the party of slowing the Democrats down, is there's a massive infrastructure in the right wing of like being contrarian, like just being natural contrarians. And so the fact that we're actually winning right now is actually terrifying to these people because they're so used to being a contrarian, where they're like, alarm bells are going off. It's like, oh, things are going well for us. Something must be wrong. And then they just dive into these bizarre conspiracies.
Oh, wow. We're winning. It's time to like start like firing on our own ranks, right? It doesn't make sense. I think I might take issue with that a lot. I think J.D. Vance did a Turning Point speech recently where he fielded a bunch of questions. It was on the Charlie Kirk tour or whatever. He was finishing it off. But he did, I think, a great job of fielding a lot of questions from these different warring factions. There were some uncomfortable questions there about Israel and his wife's faith and being in a interracial marriage. And I think he handled it with poise. I think J.D. Vance will be able to keep the coalition together, maybe not as well as Trump does, because Trump is like a really once-in-a-generation kind of political figure. But I have faith that J.D. Vance will be able to do that. I think it is more difficult that Charlie is out of the picture now.
Yeah, well, also, like, Vance is tapping into the secret sauce that Trump tapped into. And he was almost the first Republican to ever realize this, is that, like, young white guys are actually pretty effective at, like, political activism and these sorts of things. Granted, a lot of it's online. And Trump was, like, the first Republican in a long time who actually, like, directly addressed their concerns and needs. And I think that's the secret sauce that Vance is not afraid to tap into, as well as, you don't have to, like, go and stump or whatever and pander, but, like, actually just sit there and address their needs is very valuable. And Republicans just refuse to do this because they're still so paranoid of being perceived as like identity politics or racist or whatever.
I think there's so much going on with Vance, and I feel like there is a growing group of nativist and groyper types that do have, according to their ideology, like valid criticisms of the president. These guys are like not hyper-religious, but very Catholic, and Vance converted to Catholicism. And I guess they are supposing, like, if you believe in these beliefs and if you believe that America's a Christian nation and whatnot, then, you know, how does that conflict with your wife being of a different belief? You know, I mean, and it's whether or not you think that's fair game. I mean, she would be the first lady, and you're a public figure, and like, you know. Also, I feel like this Israel stuff isn't going anywhere. The anti-Israel sentiment is only increasing in the Republican Party, and it's going to fracture the Zionist part of the coalition, and it's also going to fracture the war hawk, the national security cons. Which, I mean, people like to joke around about how important of a you know, part of the coalition they are, but I think they're important. And I mean, we're coming on the heels of the death of Dick Cheney, who kind of represented the modern day peace through strength. And, you know, everybody manages to talk shit about his death online. The worst people could die. Nobody has anything bad to say about them. But when our former conservative Republican vice president passes away, everybody has a mouthful to say.
Well, the Usha attack line is the most bizarre one to me, because when they met and got married, Vance was an agnostic, so like the faith wasn't really an issue. And then he converted Catholicism after they were married. So the attack line makes no sense. Like, what do you want him to do? Divorce her? Like, is that what you wanted her to do?
They want, for Erica, that's what they want.
I'm like, not very Catholic of you. Last time I checked, you guys don't believe in divorce. What are we doing here?
They want him to divorce her and him to sign the deportation papers to send her out of the country. And his kids too. They want him to get rid of his kids. That's legitimately, there are people that are like, yo, we can't have Vance because he actually married this Indian woman. There are people that, now I don't know how influential they're going to be in the future, but they exist and they are vocal on the internet.
I think people don't, they have issues with Indians, and Usha Vance is an Indian, and I feel like anti-Indian racism is increasing. I don't know. Am I off base here?
I don't think that it's
am I unique in noticing this?
I don't think that it's just Indian.
I would qualify this with, so I worked in DFW at the Blaze for the past couple years, and you would be shocked at the amount of foreigners that are taking over in DFW. It's not like there are just like one or two just sprinkled in, and it's like entire neighborhoods are being taken over.
Narendra Modi came to visit, and he had filled an arena, and they were more excited to see him than President Trump.
It's not necessarily like we need to have. You said like anti-Indian racism or whatever. It's like, no, it's not. I don't hate anyone. I just love America and Americans. And if these people are not coming here to like assimilate to our culture, but they're setting up like different shops and businesses and whatever that are all for and by their people as opposed to Americans, it's like that is a problem.
Do you think Usha
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.